thanks everyone for tuning in. And if you want to hop up on stage after we go through all of the topics, feel free to. You can ask any questions. You can talk about crypto raiders, cool ideas you have, pretty much anything in the Web3 gaming space. But we want to just give Twitter Spaces a try with some community chats going forward, just making it so that it's more like, anybody on the community can come up and talk and ask questions without having to, hop on camera or what have you. And also just that we can, keep people in the loop on what we're doing more often. So hopefully by doing it on Twitter Spaces and building up an audience over time, we can get a lot of people in the Web3 gaming space, more interested in crypto raiders. But we have lots of cool topics to talk about today in terms of what we're working on over the next couple of months. As you can see in the title, we got forging, which will be coming into the game soon. We have a lot of really exciting stuff happening with the town of Portland. And then we can fill you in on some other projects that we're working on currently. But yeah, let's get started with the town of Portland, which I think everybody is really excited about. I'm super excited about. But the idea behind the town of Portland is this is going to be, crypto raiders' first, open world town multiplayer experience where people can, load into, they can chat, they can have fun, they can trade, they can go fish. But then also we have ideas for how to, really take Town of Portland to the next level and do some things that other games haven't really done yet. And Matt, feel free to chime in at any time when when I'm going through these different things. But
yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm really excited about Portland. Been having a blast with the art team, ideating on the map and working on the assets. I don't know if you guys saw earlier today, one of the new NPCs that we posted on Twitter. He's going to be the woodcutter in Portland. And, Portland is really fun because it brings the Crypto Raiders game really to life, giving that first open world multiplayer experience, where players are able to hang out together and trade and have that feeling of an MMO is something that we're really, really excited about. For those of you who don't know, Portland is going to be a seaside town on the western side of Arium. And we're currently, I believe I've shared it before on our Discord, but we could also share some concepts on Twitter of the overall map of Arium. So Portland will be our first playable part of it. We plan to launch with fishing, as Nick mentioned, along with forging, which may not be in the initial Portland experience, but forging will be another big feature that will launch. And we're really excited to get a deeper feel for the game into Crypto Raiders.
yeah, and so where we're at so far, Tyrael and the art team has been making great progress on the the buildings that are going to go into Town of Portland, but then also the tile set. So Ken, who a lot of you know, is our lead art guy. He's working on the tile sets for the Town of Portland, and you know how much effort Ken puts into these things. So he wants it to be a really rich, exciting experience. And the reason why the Town of Portland is coming with fishing, what we're saying when we're talking about that is that we talked for a while about doing fishing where it was just going to be like a dungeon instance that you would load into just like a normal dungeon, and you would just be there fishing by yourself, and you throw your rod, you have your bait, yada yada, you get different types of fish and items, and then you exit the instance. But we really feel like we're, especially with the Town of Portland, we're trying to move away from some of these instance experiences and have more open world experiences. So Tyrael and some other people really push for fishing to actually be a part of the Town of Portland experience. And what we mean by that is you're not going to go into the Town of Portland, you're not going to go up to the fishing NPC and then say, I want to go fishing, and you load off into an instance on your own. It'll be much more Stardew Valley-esque fishing, where it's just natively integrated into the map. And then also because of that, it makes like fishing have the potential to be like a multiplayer social experience as well. So you could be, fishing at a certain spot with you and your friends, just hanging out. So we really felt like integrating fishing natively into the like the open world experience was the right move. So really excited about that and what the possibilities create. But the art team's working on all of that as well. And I think the game design team pretty much has fishing wrapped up, right, Daryl?
Yeah, the fishing stuff is wrapped up from a game design perspective, and it's exciting, having that experience where you're able to fish with other people, right? If you're fishing by yourself, I mean, that's just kind of lame, right? So us being able to incorporate it into a social experience is really exciting. With each different fishing spot. So the pond versus the dock versus the river, each having its own unique type of fish. Um, and requiring different types of rods and levels to access those different points. So pretty exciting stuff that we're finally getting fishing off the ground. I know everybody's been dying for it since Ken's mock-ups back in was that October, November.
Yeah, it'll be nice if we can hit it on the 1 year anniversary. That'd be exciting. But yeah. So in terms of the progress on development of Town of Portland, so originally we were going to look at building this whole multiplayer experience and just like custom coded all ourselves. But someone on our team found a great solution that's actually used by a lot of projects that makes this whole multiplayer interaction and tracking where everybody is on the map and making sure everything's accurate. It takes a lot of that legwork out. So we're currently working on proof of concepts with that solution. At first, we're just going to try to get some crypto raiders running around. But then once we've making some decent progress there, then we'll start to bring in some of the tile sets and the building assets and start laying out the town. But then before we release this, we want to get fishing natively into the open world experience as well as trading. And I think trading is going to be a key economic unlock for the game. It's not only going to create a social experience, but it's going to create a whole fun economic experience as well. Where you can trade weapons with people, you can trade them an item and they can just give you Aurum back, all sorts of things. But I think getting that economic activity through trading is going to be really, really exciting. And then that's going to be the MVP for the town of Portland. So it's really going to be just an awesome visual place with lots of buildings and an awesome laid out town that people can hang out with. It's by the water, as Matt said. That's why you can go fishing and you can go trading. And that's going to be the MVP release. And then we're going to start to integrate more game mechanics into the game so that the town of Portland is where you naturally load into when you're playing Crypto Raiders. And then you go, if you want to go forging, you can do that. If you want to go to Laz, that's an actual building instead of just in a dashboard. So after we get the MVP out, we'll start to integrate more of the game mechanics into the town. And then once we have that done, looking farther ahead, and once again, when we're saying looking farther ahead, these are exciting ideas that we're looking to build, but these aren't things that are, we're going to get done with the MVP or in the first 3 months. We just want to talk to you all about the direction that we're going and the cool opportunities that we see. So one really cool opportunity that we see when we're looking at RPGs and Web3 gaming and some unique things that we can do that not a lot of other games do, but some do actually a pretty decent job of this, like Albion Online. But we really want to push the envelope on player-owned buildings in the town of Portland, and basically allow players through a leasing system instead of permanent ownership, rather a leasing system. Because we think if people can permanently own things, it can create all sorts of awkward things. Versus if a player can lease a building or a guild can lease a building for 6 months or a year, it just means if they're not using it properly, or if they're or if the town doesn't want them, and we can talk about that later. There's ways for buildings to come in and out of the town instead of it just being permanent ownership. But the idea is that we want players to be able to own the buildings and have all sorts of different experiences. So they could have a guild town hall where their guild all loads into that building and maybe they have additional storage there, all the way from players able to own trading shops, essentially, where they have they can load items and cost and price out different items in a player-owned shop, and other players can come and buy and sell things from them. And that's actually why, if you notice, we've been saying we want trading in the town of Portland and not an auction house. And that's for multiple reasons. One is that we think trading creates a social experience. If any of you have played Diablo 2, you will remember that trading added this interesting experience that if you play with modern day RPGs and you do the auction houses are just very transactional, right? It's like, I want to buy this thing. What's the lowest price? And there's zero social interaction versus with trading, there can be people that are really good traders and they know how to, arbitrage prices and yada, yada, yada. But if there's also player-owned buildings, then player-owned buildings kind of act as like pseudo auction houses with a little bit more friction, which like creates interesting things, right? So for example, a guild could be really good at forging. And so they have just all of the great forging items that you can get in their, player-owned building. And just any players can come in there and they can interact with the NPC inside and buy and sell things from them. And on the note of NPCs, basically we would want almost all NPC experiences in the game to actually be like controlled by players. We think it's really cool if the entire economy of a town is ran by players instead of players just being able to have a guild hall and there's just NPCs that are doing all of the economic activity. We think it's way cooler if players are doing most of the economic activity in a town. And then just a last thing to touch on, once again, looking even farther ahead, we could eventually get to a spot where if we have multiple towns in Crypto Raiders, players could essentially join a town. And it wouldn't be something that you could just switch on the fly. Like, you would decide what town you want to be a part of. That's where you would spawn into whenever you spawn into the game. And through that, you could actually eventually have town governance where the players in a town could put a 1% transaction tax on everything that happens in the town and then use those funds to do all sorts of interesting things in the game. That's looking super far ahead. But just to recap, the town of Portland MVP is getting this open world interactive experience with fishing and trading in it. And then from there, we're going to integrate more game mechanics to the town. And then looking farther ahead, getting testing out cool concepts like player-owned buildings.
Yeah, I think that talking about the player-owned economy and having players own different aspects like trading halls and things opens up a lot of really cool possibilities when you think about as the game continues to expand and different regions open up. Perhaps Portland has specifically things that relate to the ocean, and like fishing is better in Portland versus in a new instance or town that's across the map, right? So maybe resource costs fluctuate between areas based on how you have to travel between them, right? Things like the player owned housing is really cool too, just because not only the customization that and ownership that players could have over the housing, but what if you could even help shape the way that the town is built, right? You had the ability to kind of like place your plot of your building, your plot in a specific place within a neighborhood in the town. So I think there's a lot of really fun things that we can do to incorporate, the community while we continue to build out these experiences and make sure that it feels, very community owned and built.
Yeah, very well said. And yeah, so that's the town of Portland update that a lot of the team is working on right now, and we're very excited about. So we'll continue to give more details as we're expanding and building all of that and get closer to launch. Then another project that we're working on, the game design team is almost done with this one, but it is our forging system. And our forging system will likely launch potentially before the town of Portland, just as a UI option in our current dashboard. And then after we get town of Portland up, we'll have like a building where you actually can go do forging in the town, which will be very cool. But right now, as I said, the game design team is almost done. And we have the art team already working on the assets for forging. And then last but not least, of course, our devs will code in all of the logic and work on integrating it into our backend and get it live. So how forging will work is you're going to take first off, what you can craft out of the gate is it's between like 6 to 8 different types of helmets. And these different types of helmets will be geared towards different stat affinities. So there'll be helmets that would work better for a druid or for a barbarian potentially. Although we'll probably see a lot of overlap where certain classes may wear a different type of helmet just because they're trying to get stat points in a different section. But what you will do is you'll take 3 items, you'll put them into the forger, and then based on the items that you put in, you're going to get a helmet as an output. And there's a chance to roll a common, an uncommon, an epic, or a rare, but it's going to depend on the input that you put into the forging system. So, for example, if you throw in 3 common items, right, your chance of getting like a common or a rare is going to be much better, much worse than if you put in like 3 epic items. Your chance of getting an epic output is, I think, 100%. There's also a chance for a forge to fail, and that will be dependent on also what items you are putting in there. So, if you put a bunch of commons in there, your chance for failure will be much higher than if you put like 3 rares or 3 epics. But there'll be all sorts of different intricacies in the system, so you're not going to just see everybody throwing in 3 rares. There's all sorts of interesting scenarios that can come out of it. There's also eye level progression of the items. And why this is important is if you were just throwing in 3, eye level 5 weapons, and then you forge it and you get out an eye level 5 helmet, well, if you're used to rocking eye level 28 gear, that's pretty much useless to you. So based on the eye levels that you put into the forger, you'll get a slightly higher eye level item. And then you can kind of work your way up. So you're not just going to have to you don't only have the option of throwing in eye level 28 items to get a great eye level 28 helmet. You can throw in 3 eye level 22 items and turn them into an eye level 24 helmet, and you can kind of go through the forging process with all of this gear that you don't want and craft up to some really awesome different type of helmet gear. So we think this is going to be a great, starting crack at the forging system. Also, for people that are sitting on a lot of gear, this is a great way for you to use the forging system to get rid of all of this inventory you have no use for, to get items that'll be great. And then these great items can help you progress deeper in content and get even more gear for your other slots. So really excited about the forging system. We probably have about a week left of optimization on the game design team, and I think the art for it is probably a week or 2 away. Once we get it to the dev team and give them a scope of work, they'll have a much better idea of how long this will take. But it's not a crazy complex feature add, so we're looking forward to getting it into the game, within the next 2 months.
Yeah, another cool thing about the forging system, and maybe this is just me from a weird cosmetic perspective, but I love that we're getting helms and hats into the game. It opens up a lot of fun, and particularly going into Portwind, that additional piece of gear will be very fun to have on the Raiders outside of just the combat and game progression that comes with it. But yeah, I'm excited for forging and clear out some of the those older items and try my role at Glory for that epic. I think it's a fun mechanic as well to have that chance of break. That way, you're not able to just consistently spam common items and get a great result after so many rolls. So really excited for the forging system to drop, and also with forging, we plan on launching boots. So boots would be something that we're talking about having drop in Endless Dungeon, but that would be another stat enhancer that would drop simultaneously and go with that forging launch.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, me personally, when you get like back to back three comments, kind of sucks. But if you can throw it into the forging system, and maybe you roll an uncommon helmet, and you can stack a couple of those and get a rare helmet, like you'll at least get some value out of like items that are otherwise just sitting there and collecting dust. But yeah, we'll keep you in the loop once we have a more concrete timeline on that. But it's progressing very well through the game design team. And our game design team as a whole is getting better and better with each of these features to just have a like fully hammered out system that is easier for our team to implement. So forging should be coming in not too distant of the future. Um, Next on the list, I wanted to talk about mobs because there's been lots of questions about mobs from our community, and I think it's like really important that we discuss where we're at with mobs and where we see mobs going in the future. So first and foremost, mobs are due in an Aurum airdrop for all of the endless dungeons that have been running. That's long overdue. That's definitely on me. I've just been heads down on some other things we've been trying to do. So we will 100% be getting a mobs airdrop before the end of the month. But then to give everybody an idea of like strategically how we're looking at mobs, um, we consider like the success of mobs to be highly correlated to the success of the game, right? Like if you own a enemy mob in a game with 2,000 players, what does that look like versus owning a mob in a game that has 20,000 or 200,000 players, right? So the success of mobs is highly correlated to the success of the game. And that's why we've been really pushing to get the game into Unity, to start getting lots of feature updates and new experiences into the game, because a more successful Crypto Raiders game means that mobs themselves are more successful. But that doesn't mean that we're not looking right now at things that we want to do for mobs. So one of the biggest things that we're doing that's on the more immediate roadmap is once we get Town of Portland and Forging out of the way, we're taking another look at Endless Dungeon 2.0. And we want to greatly improve the experience of Endless Dungeon 2.0. We don't want it to make this it a linear, you're just loading in from one battle screen to the next. We want to make it a much more rich and fun game mode. And through that, more people will be playing that mode. Matt also talked about the fact that we will be dropping boots into Endless Dungeon, which will make it even more viable. But then we're also looking at improved mechanics that make the mobs integration much cleaner, where the mobs may also be getting almost an item sacrifice from the Endless Dungeons. So this is Endless Dungeon 2.0 is still with the game design team. It's a very big project, so we're still hashing out a lot of the finer details. But that's going to be a big update that will, I think, greatly help mobs. And then we're also looking at how we can integrate mobs into new game modes entirely. This is very early on in the conceptual phase, but we're looking at I would call it sort of like maybe a combination of a game like a base building game and a tower defense game in a sense, but the mobs would be the ones attacking. So we're exploring all sorts of deeper integrations with mobs into new game types. But on the short-term horizon, it's about getting mobs their airdrop and then improving Endless Dungeons 2.0 so that as the Crypto Raiders game grows and Endless Dungeon is a big part of it, mobs get more and more utility that way. And then, as we look ahead into 2023, looking at, bigger integrations with mobs will be very exciting. But I definitely think that, mobs is something that we have to be patient on in terms of getting it to a spot where it's very well integrated with the game, but that the game itself is successful. Because at the end of the day, we need a successful game for there to be utility for owning an asset inside of that game.
Yeah, I'm excited for the possibilities with Endless Dungeon 2.0. Our conversations with game design have been, really exciting about that. Adding in addition, player agency to those dungeons and having those choices influence the outcome of different results. Having little different brand new experiences within the endless dungeon that are by chance that maybe you aren't able to always have, that could be really fun. For example, maybe there's a traveling merchant that, comes through the endless dungeon that sells a transmog potion, and you could have an undead Tammy, or an undead, character in some way, right? That would be really fun. So I think there's a lot of possibilities there. And, just to reiterate what Nick said, we really value the mobs, and we know the community values them, and we just want to make sure that we deliver on a really good outcome for those mobs and incorporate them into the game in a good way.
Yeah, one of the symptoms of developing crypto raiders and is that since we've been a live development game, there's a lot of things that we've tried to get into the game, and it's not that they were half-assed. It's just that for the first 6 months of building crypto raiders, we were a very small team. The project didn't get a lot of attention, and we really started getting attention in December of last year. And we've been spending a lot of time just getting our core game infrastructure up to speed and much on a much cleaner system, and get the features that we're working on to be a lot more fun and exciting features, instead of just getting things into the game that are almost like band-aids or quick little patches. We're really trying to take the perspective across the board of like we need to be really making game mechanics and feature additions that are really fun and net value adds to the game. And we've been getting a lot better over that, or doing that rather, over the last 3 months, I would say. The previous 6 months, at some point, we were kind of running around with like a chicken, like our head cut off at some points in time. We had scaled the team very aggressively. We were trying to work on lots of different things, and I think we're just getting better over time at trying to do bigger, more significant things that will have a long-term impact, instead of quick fixes here and there. And that's sort of what we're talking about with mobs. But once again, we really need a successful Crypto Raiders game that has lots of players for mobs to be something that has a lot of utility, and something that we can do a lot of fun and cool things with. There's a lot more exciting future for mobs if we can get Crypto Raiders to a much bigger game size. Looking at some other things that we're working on. So right now we're currently building out the Paladin and the Knight class. In the Paladin and the Knight class, they both work off of pretty fun and unique energy systems. So Paladin works sort of like a sliding scale to the left and the right. And to the right is like a holy paladin, and to the left is like a corrupted paladin. And different talents that you use will kind of shift you further to the holy or the corrupted side. And when you're on one side of the other, you kind of like, if you're all the way on the corrupted side, you can't really use holy abilities anymore, or at least your holy abilities now kind of do the corrupted version of it, if that makes sense. And then Knights work off of a complete unique energy system as well. So we think those are going to both be very fun additions to the game. So those are both completely done by the game design team, and they're currently in development. And the art team has all the assets ready for that. And then after that, we're going to work on tier 2 of classes. So tier 2 on the talent tree. I'm really excited about this because it's going to create a lot more optionality and a lot more differences in builds between all of these classes. Right now, all of the classes, you really have a choice of 3 different talents, right? And then like buffing, 1 or 2 of them. So even though we have different flavors with the classes, there's a lot of overlap between classes. Once we get tier 2 out, there's going to be a lot more depth and different builds that people can come out with. So I'm very excited to do that. But then many of you may wonder, well, like if I only have 4 talent points, like how am I really going to get into tier 2 of classes? So what we're looking to do is we're looking to shift that where you start getting classes like all the way down to level 5. Because if you think about it, the game's going to become a lot more fun to be a class. So we want people to quickly get into the class system. But that also means if you're at like, level 12, you're going to have 7 or more rather, maybe like 8 talent points to allocate to. So you'll be able to get deeper into the tiers of classes. So really excited for that to come out. I think that will most likely be coming into the game sometime in September. So really excited to get those 2 new classes out.
Yeah, the talent tree is really exciting just because the deeper we get, the more flavor that each class will get, and it sort of behaves in the way that we intend, and it unlocks, right. For example, the wizard's silence, will make sense later down the line when there's abilities that will couple with that. And speaking about the talent tree in general, one thing that we wanted to think about as well is what will dungeon experiences look like in the future, right? What will gameplay look like? And thinking about multi-ally and multi-enemy battles, and making sure that we're building those abilities, to not just have singular targeted effects, but also global effects as well, to make sure we're preparing for that next iteration of combat.
Yeah, exactly. Because like a knight having a taunt is completely useless in a 1v1 scenario. But if it's, three raiders on the screen versus three other raiders or three enemies, a knight being able to taunt and force all of the enemies to attack them, and the druid can throw a shield or heal. The interactions and like the variability and the fun factor really go up there. So actually, on that note, we have our Unity team working on a proof of concept for the multi-ally and multi-enemy dungeon. We already have that system kind of our current combat system built to handle that. There just may be some tweaks here and there, but we're working on a proof of concept. And if that goes well, then with the next content release, you should expect some different dungeon types, right? Where you can go in with three raiders and do some more complex dungeon battles, and through that get some even cooler gear. We're also looking ahead to later this year to get some special events and different fun experiences into the game. One of them may come in the town of Portland. There's rumors of a wishing well or something like that may be coming down the road. But we're also looking at some different special events and dungeons to do later this year. We had a lot of fun doing the Halloween event last year and the Christmas event. And we think there's more cool stuff that we can do like that can drop unique loot and fun things like that. We're actually looking at some NFT projects where we could do a special event dungeon that's themed for that NFT project. We're early in the concept phase on that, but we're looking through some fun additions to that as well. But yeah, so that's all of the updates for the what we're working on in the game itself. Oh, the one big thing that we left off that we've been working on pretty extensively is a big rework to the combat stat system. We're moving to a combat stat system that's going to have magic and physical damage. It's going to have magic and physical defense, and it's going to have stats work a lot more like RPGs that we're used to, where they really only influence one thing instead of these complex formulas. So it's really hard to understand how to build your character if you're looking for more or less of something. With this combat stat system, if you want more HP on your raider, it's going to be very easy to understand what is the most optimal way to do that. There's also things like the combat stat rework is going to be adding damage to items and different things, or sorry, damage to weapons specifically and different things like that. But it's a big rework, and we really want to do this properly so that we don't have to do combat stat reworks every 3 months like we've been doing previously. We really want this to be a system that can last us for years. So we're really taking our time on it. It's currently in internal testing, and we're working through some different issues because like all of the combat formulas have to change when the stats change and this different stuff. So I imagine we're going to be in internal testing for at least a couple of weeks, and then we'll move that over to our community testing. And then if that all goes well, we'll eventually take it live into the game. But yeah, unless you have anything else, Tyriel, that's it for the update from the Crypto Raiders team side. And if anybody wants to come up on the stage and ask questions about the game, or if you have ideas for the game, things that you like, things that you think could make the game much better, really anybody and everybody can hop up. And if you're too shy to come up on Twitter Spaces, that's totally cool. You can always just drop a message or a question in the general chat of Discord, and we'll talk about it and answer it on stage.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought the magic versus physical damage and the stat rework. I'm excited about that too, because it plays just like the tier 2 talents and unlocking more of the talent tree, right? it makes those classes feel a lot more unique. A wizard really feeling like a wizard blasting people down with magic damage, and it opens up like all these complexities that can come with team battles, right? You have your physical damage guy, your magic damage guy, a tank, a healer. It gives you that full combat feel. So I'm really excited about that. Dodoy's got a question in Discord. Any update on quant hiring? Um, you want to take this one, Nick?
Yeah, definitely. So we haven't made a hire on that yet. We got some interesting candidates, but right now we currently have a contractor that's doing most of our number modeling, and he's doing a great job right now. But we still have that position open. So if the right person comes across, we would definitely look at bringing them in, because we could use additional help for sure. But right now we already have a contractor that's doing a good job of handling that. So we're being patient with the right type of hire there. And then Hefe had a question, but I'll kick to some of the people up on stage. What's up, Merrick? How you doing, man?
What's up? What's up? Hey, everybody. I'm doing okay. I got a move that's kicking my ass. So the last month and a half, I've just been MIA because I'm
Oh,
moving to another city. So I got a lot of stuff to do.
Good luck, man.
Thanks, dude. But yeah, no, great I always love the Twitter spaces. I always love the updates. So glad to hear all this stuff. But it's actually interesting that you guys talked about maybe just, at least for now, doing trading instead of auction house. Like, that's the aim. And I agree in terms of a lot of the stuff that you said, it being more social, the friction being good, because obviously interacting with the interface could also lead to a bunch of problems. People like botting, or people trying to it just becomes less of a game and more of just the money side, and actually probably removing from the money side and probably opening up so many um, exploitable things or just unfun aspects of the game. But the only question I have about trading, the only reference I have to something like that is RuneScape, and like old school RuneScape before the Grand Exchange, if anybody remembers, where people would yell like, I don't know, mithril bars for this amount of GP or whatever, trading. So, but what I remember with that, and if anyone remembers RuneScape, is just there's a lot of spamming of chat, and I guess my concern is less about the spamming of chat because that's tied with users, but will there be a chat system for trading, or will it be more personal, and will it be tied more towards Discord and stuff like that? Because honestly, for me personally, I see a big part of CR's activity coming from trading. I've always had that, and I think you guys know I've always been an advocate of like trading and loot being dispersed around in professions and all that. I think that's, when it comes to Web3 RPG, I think that is a very, very fundamental pillar, and big indicator of success of the game. So very curious about that.
yeah, and we look at it the exact same way as well. I mean, I think that um, trading just makes it a lot more fun of mechanic, and there's all sorts of interesting things that can arise from it. I loved RuneScape Classic trading and Diablo trading as well. And then eventually with player owned buildings, there'll still be spots like if you need to pick up potions, you know what I mean? Like you could go to a player owned building and you could pick up materials if they're selling materials and stuff like that. So there'll still be markets that like, you can get stuff if there's no one there to trade with. But yeah, we think there's a lot of interesting opportunities if you focus on trading. You don't have an auction house to start. But in terms of the chat systems, yeah, so we're currently looking at that. Like, I don't think we want to be doing like proximity voice chat or anything crazy like that. And I do think that there's a good amount of people that will kind of initiate their trades like on Discord. You know what I mean? They'll be like, "Hey, I'm looking for this. Does anyone have this?" And someone on Discord says, "Oh yeah, I have that rare helmet. Actually, like, does this one look good?" And someone's like, "Yeah, what time could you meet up in game?" Right? And they like meet up in game and make the trade. I think that a lot of the trading early on could work like that. But then we can also have like an in-game chat system Of course, spamming is always going to be an issue, and you can, kind of mitigate that if you have, the ability for people to mute in and out of channels, so they're not, not seeing global chat; they're only seeing party chat. But yeah, we'll definitely have a chat system in place. But I definitely think that until we get to a point where there's just hundreds of concurrent players just always sitting in the town of Portland, like ready to trade. I do think a lot of people will be like, initiating or finding items that they're interested in, like through Discord, by posting like a looking for, sort of message, and then like going into the game itself to like, execute the trades.
Yeah, I think definitely for now, but also for the future, I think Discord could be very cool for that. And maybe different channels for different things, because my mind is always thinking future, like blacksmithing, tailoring, like specific professions where people craft specific item for other players. And
Exactly.
maybe,
Where like they don't have it like in stock, they actually
yeah,
have to like custom craft it.
yeah. And then you have like a blacksmithing channel. So if anyone wants a blacksmithing piece, they go into that channel. So yeah, it could be cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
All
definitely,
right.
man. Really excited for you to get your move squared away, and then
Yeah.
see more of you. Always love like talking with you and all the value you bring.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Love it. All right. That's it for me.
Awesome. And then runner five, you got a question, man?
Yep. First off, I want to say thank you to you and the team. You guys have done a really great job overall. Like, I think a lot of people, because of some delays that I wouldn't necessarily say are your faults or anyone else's fault, they get upset because they want something now and they don't understand the time and effort that it takes to coordinate and build what you guys are building. So kudos to you guys for continuing to build, especially in the market the way it is. But I just wanted to kind of ask some questions regarding some of the things that you guys had discussed earlier. Like when you talk about the player-owned buildings and leasing, are those assets that you guys think that you'll create? Or I thought at some point you guys had discussed different NFT project like World Wide Web or something. So I didn't know if you guys were going to be importing other projects assets in there, or if you guys were creating your own essentially smart contract or whatever for that portion of the game that you guys are looking to build in.
Yeah, fantastic question. So, yeah. So first off, thanks for telling us we've been doing a good job and working hard. I take a lot of responsibility personally for kind of overstretching all of the things that we were talking about, and stretching it beyond our ability to get all this stuff done. I just think like in a bull market and when everyone's excited and things are moving, it's really, really fun to just talk about like all of the things that we, can do, especially when you're more when me personally, I'm more green to game development and how long some of these take to like build properly. And I think we're getting much better, as I said, over the last 3 months of just like understanding what we can accomplish, what the priorities are, et cetera, et cetera. So for the player owned buildings, they it would be like all through like a smart contract that we would set up, and we would make it so that you could load in your own like game building asset if you wanted like a more custom design, as long as it fit like into the theme of the game. Like if it looked like is like a space building, it may not fit into the town of Portland like aesthetics. But like we still have to fully work out the details. But like essentially how like a leasing NFT would work would be like an auction system. So you'd be like, okay, this plot or this building, you can buy a lease for this building for a year. And it could be done via an auction system, and then whoever um, wins that auction, they would get like a lease NFT that would have like a duration or a time remaining like metadata on the NFT, so that people could even trade leases, just like you can do with like cars in real life. Like just because you're in a lease, you can still trade a lease. You can sell a lease. You can buy a used lease. So allow people like if they win an auction for a piece of land and they, use it, or a building, they use it for like 3 months and they don't like it, they could sell it to someone, and that other person could use that for like the remaining, 9 months of the lease. And then basically we would give like different options. So, it could be a guild hall where your guild has a bunch of storage, or you could basically make it like a marketplace trading shop where you could load in your own items and set costs for them, and then other players could come in and buy them, and you would almost be like a shop manager. You'd go in, adjust your prices if you want, add more inventory that players could come and buy from. But if you're also talking about just like how Web3 looks at like interoperability, there's definitely things that we think we could do there that's like very excited. But like for the MVP out of the gate, it will only work with like Crypto Raiders assets, um, and then we'll look at the best way to like expand from there.
Okay, and then a follow-up question to that is on the interior of the buildings. Is that can be like kind of like in the city where you're walking around, you can go from room to room, you can kind of like explore like the floor plan kind of thing. And then if that is the case, I think it'd be kind of a neat idea, especially with so many people that are in so many different NFT projects, like especially the PFP ones, to be able to potentially like have your account that's already linked to your wallet to read whether or not it has certain assets, and then it can like kind of display it in there, right? Like as a picture on your wall.
Oh yeah, like I could have like a building, and I could have my moonbird on the wall, right? Or maybe you're a guild and you love cool cats, right? And you kind of have like a cool cat themed interior. Like there's all sorts of cool things that we can do like that. I love that idea.
Okay, and then the only other question that I have right now is, I know you talked about having Laz as having his own building, his own NPC, and a lot of the other things as well, and that when you spawn in with your character, you'll spawn in like inside the map already. So my question would be, like, are you guys going to have an NPC that we can go talk to switch out which character that we're on, like in the overworld, or is that going to be like a menu selection that you can do without having to go to an NPC? And then regarding the dungeons, will because I like Unity, but I like the old way too, where everything I could see at once, And so I don't know if there's a way to like do the NPC that opens up kind of like that menu where you can see your raiders and kind of go through and choose which one you're going to send off or go do a quest with.
Yeah, I think we got a little too cute with like our first Unity like load in like main menu, if you want to call it, or loading screen that you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So I 100% think that like as we move more and more of the game into the open world, and like originally or at first into the town of Portland, then that means that we can kind of shift the load in UI and just make it a lot simple and a lot cleaner. Like it's cute that like the characters walk around on the screen, but like practically it can be a little like frustrating and annoying. So like, yeah, like I don't want you to have to go through this whole process if you want to load out of one raider and go into another raider, like into the town of Portland, right? It should literally be like you hit like log out, or load out, and you load out to a screen where you can just easily select the raiders that you want to go in with next, and then just load right back in.
Okay. Well, I'll stop talking. But again, I just can't thank you guys enough for the game that you guys are pushing out and for the amount of effort you guys have put in over the past year.
Thanks, and yeah, we're really going to be here for years to come. It's funny now, like we're already like looking ahead to 2023 and how we want to expand the team and the key hires that we need to keep in place, and it's very much turning into a business, but it's so much fun, and I mean, at the end of the day, we've been doing this for like a year. With the size of our team now, we've been doing this for about 7 or 8 months, and I think that we just keep learning, and we're going to keep getting better, and just become a better game studio that's cranking out cool content that everyone can enjoy. And I know we got some questions in the Discord, so I'll just run through them right now. Hefe said, any updates on the LP rewards, bonds, or economy improving? Fantastic question. There's a lot that I think that we need to change there and optimize, especially when we're looking ahead. And there's all sorts of problems that we need to fix and improve on. Like right now, just like how Aurum is like working in the economy in Crypto Raiders. I think there's a lot of improvements that we can make to that as well. The most important thing that I like wanted to consider, especially as we were going into this overall crypto bear market, is to not make any knee-jerk changes while we're in this bear market without fully thinking things through, because it's very easy for people to get spooked right now in a bear market, and you can't blame anyone. And so we really want to make sure that like the changes and improvements that we make are good for a multi-year horizon, and that we've really thought them out, and that we can really convey why these changes are a net win to the community. So we're taking our time with that. I know it's not ideal, but like we've really only had the current existing system for about a year right now. And things like, for example, LP rewards have a 4-year horizon. So we have plenty of time to make improvements to that are, better for the ecosystem as a whole. But it's something that we're definitely looking at and making sure that we do properly. And then also it ties back into like the similar thing that I was saying around mobs, which is that we really have to focus on making the game and the game experiences that we have attract a lot of players, because at the end of the day, that's what makes the whole ecosystem work across all of our assets. And if we don't have that, then we're kind of just, changing things that, aren't going to make that huge impact across the board. But we're very much looking at improving the system, though the system just overall where it is right now isn't ideal, and I'm fully aware of that, and the team's fully aware of it. We just want to make sure that we handle the changes and improvements like really methodically, instead of just trying to put on a bunch of band-aids to it. And then Crypto Stamus had missed most of the space, but any mention of mobs integration. So yeah, we're doing an airdrop at the end of the month for mobs to get that caught up, and then we're on the shorter term roadmap, we're looking at making a big improvement to Endless Dungeon 2.0 that I think is going to make mobs much more exciting. And then in the conceptual phase, we're looking at new game modes that have mobs integration in them, like a game mode that's sort of similar to like a base building mode with like some tower defense mechanics, with mobs basically coming in and wrecking the base building that the raiders are trying to do. So we're looking at all sorts of game modes like that, but we're being patient and we're making sure we're also investing a lot of our resources into the core game, because for mobs to be successful, the game needs to be successful. Because if you have a mob in a game that a year from now has 1,000 players, that's not really exciting. But if there's game modes and the core game itself are attracting tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of players, then the things that we can do with mobs and the benefit utility wise of holding mobs gets better and better. And then we have Zoltan in the chat said, have you guys been talking about the role of Raider in the future of the game ecosystem? Has the idea behind it shifted since they raised venture capital? No, the idea behind it hasn't really changed or shifted since we raised venture capital at all. But how we've been talking and thinking about Raider in the future of the game system, that conversation is definitely evolving. It's just been evolving since we've been growing the game, and even more so in the past couple of months. But we're looking at Aurum as being like the in-game currency in the Crypto Raiders RPG game that is basically the equivalent of gold, right? And we're looking at Raider as being the utility token and the governance token in the ecosystem that allows you to get more like permanent access to things, or to be able to buy into potentially new game modes or new games that we build. But Raider is going to be integral to all of that. But like an example, when we're talking about player-owned buildings, right? Like the leasing system in player-owned buildings, right? Would be in Raider. Someone would pay Raider to get that like kind of premier asset in the game. Another example would be like if we eventually allowed players to own dungeons, right? And have custom dungeon experiences where they could throw their mobs into the dungeon, they could upload their own tile set, they could upload their own items, and those items would get loaded into our eye level system, and the dungeon difficulty would be like calculated by the game, and then players could do like cool experiences like that, something like that, to like own a dungeon in the game, or to like lease a dungeon experience. That would all be in Raider. And then if we were to launch new game types or like game modes that may be in the Crypto Raiders ecosystem, but maybe like a separate game type, we would have all of that flow through Raider as well. So Raider's sort of like a utility governance access token, and that position has been like evolving over time. But I think there's all sorts of cool things that we can do with it and make it more and more integral to the growing Crypto Raiders ecosystem over time. But like once again, right now, We're making sure that we're getting the core game better, and then we need to make improvements to the tokenomics and the amount of emissions that are coming out of all of our tokens. We need to fix and improve things like that, and then over time, you're going to see like how we integrate Raider as like the overarching utility governance access token in the game. But that was a fantastic question. Let's see if there's anything else.
We got one from Ferris about the combat log turning to a floating combat text. I love that, Ferris. I think that visually is a lot cleaner and looks great. The combat log, I definitely think could use some improvement and or abandonment for a better method.
Yeah, 100%. And then Crypto Stamina said, "Is the battle pass concept still a thing?" Yes, the concept very much is still a thing. Like the whole model was built like similar to kind of like the Dota International model, and we had to really put pause and pull the plug on it when the whole crypto market really unwound, because it made the economics of the model not really work anymore. But I think it's probably a good thing, because I think when we want to launch the battle pass when we have much more interesting combat in things that we can give away in the game, like giving away a mount for a battle pass into a big tournament isn't super exciting if you can't actually go around the town of Portland like in the mount. So I think having the crypto market make us put a pause on that move will probably make it a more successful move when we do integrate it and bring it in. But yeah, the battle pass thing is something that we're still very much considering. And I was talking about like the battle pass for like the international tournament. You may be talking about like the battle pass where you can get like more raids per week, in like basically like double up your character. That's something that we're definitely still exploring as well. But yeah, like right now we're just really looking at the whole thing just very soberly, and the fact that like none of these changes, none of this stuff, like it really doesn't matter if the core game and the core ecosystem itself isn't successful. And that's the number one problem that we have to solve through the Crypto Raiders core game, and then like other game modes that we're looking at and exploring. All of those are going to tie into the Raider ecosystem. And through that, you're going to see all sorts of things like battle passes, mintable and Raider, all sorts of stuff like that. But we have to get those game modes and those game mechanics exciting, where we're attracting new players, because at the end of the day, like none of this stuff will be successful if we just have 2,000 or 3,000 players logging in every day. If that's happening in 2023 or 2024, then we're struggling, and we're going to have to start looking at throwing some like Hail Mary passes. So I think that just the number one thing the whole team is looking at is like, how do we make a great game that attracts a lot of players, that integrates well with Web3, and at the core is really, really, really fun to play. And I think that's something that, during the kind of crypto gaming, mania, we like got away from, is like, just thinking down to the basics about games that are really, really fun to play. There's a new company that joined Web3 gaming, actually. It's called Limit Break. You should look it up. This guy named Gabriel is the CEO. He used to be the CEO of Machine Zone, which was like a very popular free-to-play gaming studio from like 2008 to 2020. And he's been saying a lot of great takes about Web3. First of all, he's super all in on Web3, which I think is huge for all of us, that we're seeing like real studios with real big money Web2 success, like going all in on Web3. That's huge for us. But he's been saying like all sorts of interesting things that he's been noticing about Web3. And like one of the things is that he, says that like at the, end of the day, like you can't reverse engineer your way to a fun game. And sometimes I feel like that's a lot of what we're trying to do sometimes in Web3 gaming. We're like, oh, if we just make the RuneScape of this, or, we've said that a lot as a team, right? Or, other teams are like, oh, if we just make the Pokemon of that. The sobering factor of the reality is that like people want to play new, exciting, engaging stuff. A lot of people on our team have been playing Cult of the Lamb. I'm sure some of you listening in have played Cult of the Lamb as well. Like that's just a beautiful example of like a game that's just really fun to play, and they like mash an action RPG together with like a base building thing, sort of similar to what V Rising did, which is also a very popular indie game that released a couple of months ago. But like we're trying to learn more from like the Web 2 studios than what we're currently seeing in Web 3, because like at the end of the day what matters is that we make something that's really fun to play and people want to participate in. If we solve that, if we create those experiences, then everything else in the ecosystem, the problems just get easier to solve and the solutions become like a lot more apparent, versus like right now, if we're trying to make small improvements to all of these different parts of the ecosystem, it none of it's really going to make a long-term impact if like the core ecosystem, the core game itself doesn't grow. So like I know that's a very long-winded answer, but that's kind of like how we're looking at mobs, Raider, improving the LP emissions, all of these different things, is we want to take our time. We have a lot of time to make the right changes in place. And I don't mean we're going to take a year to get utility or interesting things happening for Raider, to make a change to the LP emissions. It just means that we're like looking at these things and being patient with them, saying we need to fix and improve these things. And if we can do it in the next 3 months, like let's do it if we have the perfect solution. But let's also really put most of the eyes and energy in the team on building the game out and making the game better, because a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah, the past few months have been really fun, working on the game, man, just as we've really shifted as an organization in that mentality, and just gotten to this focus on building things of quality that will last over time, that are going to be really fun and engaging for players, versus the hype cycle and, pushing for just, the quickest content release. It's just been a blast to work on, and watching the team over the past, 90 days, really in particular over the past 45, just accelerate in their maturity and how they're looking at things and moving through that development pipeline, is really, really exciting, from a nerdy management point of view.
Totally. And like a lot of things I feel like that have been like released into the game over the past like 2 months, like those are things that like we started working on in like February, March, April of this year, when our team was just starting to work together. And then us as managers were really trying to, figure out the best operations and processes to do things. A lot of building great games is boring business work, right? And like processes and meetings and checks and balances, and making sure that we're taking projects and we're sectioning them out right. And like, a lot of these things is learning experiences for us like along the way. But I completely agree. Like the last 45 days has been phenomenal. Like just the polish coming out from every department is like really good. So we really appreciate like everybody like in the community, people that have been here since day one, people that just joined. There's a lot of people that are having fun, and it's really great to hear from people like running the community that appreciate and see like we're trust me, like if we there's a lot of game quote unquote projects out there that we could have taken their route and it would have been way not easier and not morally better, right? But there's just a lot of people that are like, oh, we launched a project and we ran it for 3 months and made millions of dollars, and we're gonna go try something else. Like Crypto Raiders, since day one, like we've said that like this is something that we want to work on for years, and it's still the fact for us. This is very much a job. We set up all of it so that Matt and I and other founders we're not cashing out crazy amounts of money. We're putting it all into the company because like we really want this to be successful. This is a dream for us. If we can be successful with Crypto Raiders and build video games and awesome things in Web3 for decades to come, that'd be an absolute dream. And every day we wake up with that attitude. And so, just if you all stick with us, what I can, tell you is that we're just going to get better as a team. We're going to get more ambitious with the things that we want to do. We're going to keep pushing to be innovative. We're just going to keep getting better. And it's not all going to happen overnight, but every day we're trying to get better. And I think the growth that we've had over the last, 3 months has been really, really strong.
Very well said, Nick. Couldn't agree with you more. I feel blessed, every day to get up and work on Crypto Raiders, and, the excitement just grows, with every day. And, so much of business is about getting the right people in the right places on the bus, right, and getting the organization to a point where things flow. We were talking the other day, about like an executive kitchen, right, and the way that those run, and how it takes people with passion, commitment, hard work, and how they all work towards a common goal in this orchestra to produce a product, right, and I really feel that we're maturing and getting to that point as a team, and it's just so exciting to see. And it's just invigorating when you get in that environment, as it pushes itself forward, in a very healthy way. So yeah, man, just excited and love the community. It's been an awesome, it's crazy. It's been, what, a year and 2 months already. We've been working on Crypto Raiders with really the last, 9 months being full time. And yeah, man, we're just more, motivated than ever to continue to
Yeah.
build a great game and move forward.
It's funny, like a year ago, we were like, okay, we need to port to Polygon, and okay, let's like make a basic dungeon where you can walk through and you can just get loot at the end. Like just a box opens and a little loot comes out. And fast forward a year from now, it's like, okay, we got 20 meetings a week to hash out all of the different departments and things we're wanting to work on. But yeah, wouldn't change it for the world. And I think I saw one more interesting comment come in on Discord from Dadoy saying, future request, add mob training ground so I can make Hellfire Knight different from other players. I want to be able to train him specific stats and perhaps even pick his abilities. Would also help to keep an ever-changing meta, as players can update their mob setup when the player meta changes. That's like a fantastic idea, and that's definitely sort of in the same veins of like some of the ideas and things that we've been looking at, where like basically people could stake their mobs, like you said, to like a training ground, and players could interact or battle with them and potentially like level up certain things. So like one example, Dadoy, would be like if you were able to battle or bribe or do some interaction with the mob, and maybe they don't change your abilities or your talents, your items, but maybe you get like a mob gem, right, that you can socket into an item and it has like unique flavor, and you can only get those types of gem sockets from mobs. Like those are all sorts of integrations that we think would be awesome and we want to add into the game. Like mobs was kind of like an idea that like I had way back in the day, and I still think it's such a cool idea. And you can see like when we talk about player owned buildings in the town of Portland, like when we're looking like years ahead, we see like this ecosystem where like the players really control everything, sort of like an EVE Online, right? Where we're really as a team just controlling like the input and output of base materials and what drops in dungeons, and the players are really in charge of the rest. It's just like prioritizing getting those things there. We're working on a big hiring process right now to get a pretty legit group of individuals that have built some great Unity games to join our team and help us like accomplish more. So some of the things is like we're just trying to continue to expand and get more resources on the team so that we can knock out and like increase the amount of things that we can like put out. But there's all sorts of amazing ideas to just add cool integration with mobs and make them more native to the gameplay. But it's just juggling that with like also making sure that we build like a great core game itself. But yeah, we got tons of ideas. We got 4.5 months basically until the end of 2022, and then it's into 2023. So we have a lot we want to accomplish into the end of this year, and then like really excited as we get into Q1 of 2023 to unveil some of the bigger plans and stuff that we've been working on at Crypto Raiders. And I think it's really going to excite the community. We're just trying to get better about under promising and over delivering, and not just like throwing out like, oh, like we may do this in the future, and instead being very concrete and like delivering on our promises. Because like during the bull run, we kind of got carried away with just all of these things that we could do, and now we're getting a lot better at like understanding what we can bite off and what we can chew, and just continue to build a great game. So yeah, really appreciate everybody hopping in and listening to us talk. And we're going to do more of these every couple of weeks, and just make it Twitter Spaces for a multitude of reasons. One is we want to start doing Twitter Spaces where we co-host with other games and other projects out there, and use this time where we talk about the game with our community to also help grow our community as well. And then one more closing thought. Hefe said, did you try yourself Entropia Universe to see from the inside its economy to get insights? I haven't yet. I've watched some YouTube videos. I've also been watching YouTube videos on EVE Online economies. There's like lots of fascinating things going there. But I'll try to get in there and actually try it. I know you've said some great things, and some other people in the community as well. But yeah, we'll wrap up here. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you have a great Friday and into the weekend.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. Tammy for life.